do. All right. This is going to go right. Let's get the participants. Any participants in? Mm-hmm. All right. Hello, everybody. I'm sorry we're starting a little late. We had some technical difficulties. They're taken care of now. Foremost and firstly, I hope everybody and their family are safe and healthy, and we get through this okay. So let's start the webinar, 2002 CARE Act. So the one main thing before we start is that I want to encourage everybody to apply for these economic stimulus. You're not going to get it if you don't apply. It's obvious, but you want to. You need to apply for these, especially the grant. If you haven't done it, 15-minute application. It doesn't take long, so we'll go through that. But apply. So the CARE Act, individual stimulus. So there's a individual portion of it. So for individuals with adjusted gross income, AGI, of up to $75,000 for individuals are eligible for a full $1,200 payment. Married couples are up to $150, and head of household is $125 in AGI to get the full $1,200 payment. The payment is reduced by $5 for every 100 in income above $75,000 for individuals, $150 for married couples. The payment amount is entirely phased out if your adjusted gross income is above $99,000 for individuals and $198,000 for married couples. There is a $500 credit for each dependent child claimed under the age of 17. The phase out of the rebate, there's a calculator. If you're in that phase out range, you can Google phase out calculators. The Washington Post seems to be the most popular one, and you can calculate what your rebate will be. What you need to do to get the stimulus rebate, nothing. It's based on your 2019 tax return, your adjusted gross income on that tax return. If you haven't filed your 2019 tax return, then they'll take the information off your 2018 tax return, and hopefully you have the same bank account as 2018 because they'll put it in that bank account. If it's a different bank account or you didn't have bank account information in the tax return, the IRS will mail you a check. Or they'll try to deposit it first if there's a bank account. If it comes back, they'll mail you a check. There is a little planning opportunity here if your income was lower in 2018 than 2019. you might want to hold off on filing for 2019 so you get that rebate. Some people are doing that if you fall into that category. The IRS says the direct deposit should be in your bank account in about 3 weeks. Checks should start arriving in 6 to 8 weeks. Technically, stimulus is a rebate for 2020. It's a refundable tax credit. The payment you receive in the next few weeks is an IRS advance. If you have less income in 2020 than in 2019 because of layoffs, reduced hours, what have you, your rebate payment may be reduced by the income threshold. You receive a credit for the difference in 2020. If for some reason you receive too much of an advance payment, you do not have to pay it back. So they just want to get money into people's pockets. So they'll give you an opportunity again in 2020 if your income is down and you're phased out in 2019 or 2018, but not in 2020, then you'll have to wait till 2021 to get the refund from your 2020 taxes. Right, so this is the part that most of the business people wanted. I just wanted to go into the individual part a little bit to start the program. But there are certain SBA loan and grant options. So we have a Paycheck Protection Program. We have the Emergency Economic Injury Grant of up to $10,000. We have Small Business Debt Relief Program, and we have the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. We'll talk about all of those programs. So the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and Emergency Economic Injury Grant Program. This is you have to apply for the loan program to get the $10,000 grant. So the $10,000 grant, you have to have some eligibility. So for the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, it's up to $2 million. And to be eligible, you have to either have 500 or fewer employees. Sole proprietors are eligible. Independent contractors are eligible. SC Corp, LLC partners are eligible. Basically for small businesses, whether you're incorporated, a sole proprietor, or not. It's also available for not-for-profits. So if you are a non-for-profit, you are eligible for the EIDL loan and also the emergency grant. So if you are eligible for the EIDL and the Emergency Economic Injury Grant, you can get the Paycheck Protection Program as well. So you can get all three of them, but you can't mix the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program can't be used for the same thing as the EIDL loan. How do you apply for the Economic Injury Disaster Loan? There's a website. It's very simple. The website is also through my website as well if you want, or it's on here. At the end, when we do the Q&A, I'll go to the slide and leave this slide on for the Q&A session. That seemed to be the longest session of the morning session. So right at the end of this or tomorrow morning, please, if you haven't done that, go on that website, apply. What you need is some basic information that you have, your name, social security number. You also need the tax ID number of the company. If you're not a sole proprietor, you need the date of the company started. You would need your gross sales for the last 12 months. We've been using just 2019 sales revenue. It's not the last 12 months, but it's very close, and we have tax returns, so we use those. And you need the cost of goods sold. I'll talk about how those interrelate with the loan in a few minutes. So the loan is calculated by the last 12 months of sales minus cost of goods sold divided by 2. So if you had $1 million of sales in 2019 and you had $300,000 of cost of goods sales, you'd have $700,000 left over in gross profit. You could get a loan of up to $350,000, half of that $700,000. So that's the loan. You can take it or not take it. It's 3.75%. And it's amortized. It could be amortized up to a 30-year period. But the real cream on this is the grant. The grant could be up to $10,000, and you have to apply for the loan to get the grant. And again, to apply for the loan, you need to apply on that website. Very quick, very easy. And at the end of the application process is a question: do you want the injury grant of up to $10,000? Please press yes on that. They'll ask you for your banking information. Obviously, put the grant, whatever you've got accepted for, in there. Some people were a little hesitant to put their banking information into this SBA website, but I'd highly encourage you to do that, because that's how you get your grant. And the grant does not have to be paid back. And the grant, whether you take the loan or not, is irrelevant with the grant. So you can choose not to take the loan and you still get the grant. You can choose to take some of the loan. In our example, maybe you want to take 150 of 350, 200,000, what have you. You can take any part of the loan up to the full amount. That choice you can make later on. So again, the grant is independent of the loan, but you have to apply for the loan to get the grant. That's the process to receive the grant. So the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP for short. So you have, what businesses are eligible? Businesses and entities must have been in operation from February 15, 2020 on. Again, not-for-profits are eligible. Individuals who operate as sole proprietors and independent contractors who have employees, and any business that employs less than 500 people are eligible for this PPP program. And how the PPP program works is they'll take the average payroll for the time period of February 15, 2019 to June 30th, 2019. So they'll take that payroll, the average payroll for that period, and give you 2.5 times that payroll. So for discussion purposes, let's say payroll is 10,000. We'll have a low example. So 10,000 is the average monthly payroll for that time period of February 15, 2019 to June 30, 2019. They'll give you $25,000. So you have to 8 weeks to spend that $25,000, obviously, when you get back up on your feet. If you're not a non-essential employee, you're not working now. Maybe you're a construction person. Maybe you're somebody in the restaurant industry. They'll wait to give you the loan until you ask for it, until you're open. And then you have 8 weeks to spend that money on 3 items: payroll and overhead, as defined as utilities and rent. So our example, you have $25,000. In 8 weeks' time, you spend $30,000 in payroll, rent, and utilities. Now the full $25,000 is forgiven. It is taxable to you, but that's okay. It's found money, and you have the offset of the payroll, rent, and utilities to offset that. Another example, you get to $25,000, but you only spend $20,000 on payroll, rent, and utilities. That extra $5,000 you can give back to the SBA, no penalties, no interest, and you're done. You can choose to take it over a 10-year period with 4% interest, or you can do something in between. You might say, okay, you know what, I need $3,000 for a computer, but the $2,000 I don't want as a loan. Can I borrow the $3,000 at 4% for 10 years? And you can always prepay that with no penalty. So you have options. If you don't meet the full requirement to pay that back, then you have a 4% loan at 10 years. So what are eligible costs? Compensation, salaries, wages, vacation pay, allowance for dismissal or separation, health insurance. So if you pay for your employee's health insurance, that goes into the average cost of the payroll for that period from February 15, 2019 to June 30th. Payment of retirement benefits. So if you have any retirement plans and you match your employees' retirement benefits, that would go in there. Payment for state and local tax assessed on compensation of employees. So you calculate what your average payroll will be, and you get 2.5 times that average payroll. What is not eligible is employee or owner's compensation over 100,000. So not that, let's say somebody's making 140,000, you only count the first 100,000. You don't dismiss the whole 140. You just include up to 100,000. If the owner's compensation is under 100,000, let's say the owner's taking 80,000, then that 80,000 counts. The owner's compensation counts as long as it's under 100,000. What doesn't count as well, compensation for employees whose principal place of residence outside the U.S. Okay. But mostly it's over 100,000. So what are allowable uses of the loan proceeds? Now this is the PPP loan. So the other loan I mentioned before, the economic injury disaster loan, EIDL, I'm sorry, I get caught up in these acronyms. The EIDL you can use for any business purpose, but the PPP you should only use for payroll costs, as noted above. Costs related to continuing of group health care benefits, health insurance, employee salaries, commission, or similar compensation, payment on interest on any mortgage obligation. So if you have a mortgage on your building, you can use it to pay the interest portion of it, rent or utilities, or interest on other debt obligations which are incurred before the covered period. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a separate bank account for the PPP loan, assuming that I receive it. I'm certainly applying for it, and I hope to receive it, just to make things simple. I don't want to make things difficult for my accountant. They yell at me. And also makes it easier just to track. So if anybody wants to audit it, you just look at this bank account. Here it is. You know, payroll went through here. I paid my rent through here. I paid my utilities through here. It's clean. So if you are applying for the PPP loan, you should highly recommend that you open up a separate bank account within your company for that. So we mentioned for any amounts not forgiven, you have a 10-year 4% interest rate. So the forgiveness again is the payroll cost over the 8-week period, excluding the 100,000, plus any payments to interest, plus any covered rent and utility payments. The PPP loan, you can't, so the EIDL loan, we saw the website for the link for the SBA. So for the EIDL loan and for the injury grant, you apply directly with the SBA. For this loan, you have to go to either a bank or a broker, any bank that deals with the SBA, which is most of them, or there are brokers out there that are doing this. If you need any references, I'm happy to give you references to banks or brokers that could help you fill it out, but you can't do this on your own with the SBA like you can do the EIDL loan or the grant. So the other part of the program is a much smaller part. This program will provide immediate relief for people with small business loans that already exist or new small business loans. There will be no payments for 6 months. After 6 months, payments will resume. So that's just a little bit of a benefit for people who already have SBA loans outstanding. Okay, that concludes the formal part of our program. We will go to Q&A now. Let me get back to the important slide. And that is the website that you should apply if you haven't applied for, either tonight or tomorrow morning for the loan, and more importantly, not more importantly, but also the grant, which is more immediate, I should say. Okay, let's see what we have with any questions. So we have a few questions about the, have you started yet? Yeah, we started. We had some problems with the technician, so we're here. If you are a small business that use 1099 consultants, can you use this package? Honestly, not sure. I've heard some guidance that if you use 1099 consultants and they only work for you as 1099 consultants, then they will count. If you email me that question, I will look that up further and get back to you. Again, this is a very new program. It just came out, so trying to do the best I can to give the information that I have. I don't have all the information, but that is a very good question that was repeated. So whoever wrote that question, email me and I'll get back to you, or whoever has that question, email me. Do we have deadlines to apply? Yes, you have until December 31st, 2020. I would apply as soon as possible, though. These things are probably on a first come, first served basis, and people need the money now, but there is a December 31st deadline. Do you know what documentation will be required to submit with the application? So the EIDL loan is very simple. There's just a questionnaire to fill out. takes 10 to 15 minutes. Literally, it's just you need to know your tax ID number, when you started the business, your gross revenue, and your cost of goods sold. And that's it. For the PPP loan, it's a simple 2-loan application. It really just asks you what your average monthly payroll is for that time period. You put it in, and then you give that to the SBA bank. So the documentation is very minimal. Also, some other people in the morning session asked, does this affect your credit score, or is this credit score driven? Neither of those are yes. So both no. So it's not credit score driven at all, and it does not affect your credit score. They want to get as much money to as much people who are hurting as possible. They don't want to exclude people who had bankruptcies, have low credit score. It doesn't even come into the picture. Can a church file for a PPP? I believe so. Non-for-profits can. So yes, and the bank will tell you, or the broker will tell you if you can't. But just like I said before, apply. Don't let me tell you no. Let the banks tell you no. So that you should always apply. Can we apply both for the EIDL and a PPP? Yes, you can. You don't have to take them both. But the PPP is obviously a more stronger loan because it turns into a grant. But if you do apply for the PPP and the EIDL, you can't use the EIDL for PPP purposes to pay the same payroll. So you have to use it for other purposes, to buy equipment, to maybe pay for advertising, things of that nature. The PPP is very restricted, that in the beginning that you should only pay for payroll, utilities, and rent. And I guess if you pay for anything else, it's not included in the forgiveness portion. The form asks how much money did we lose due to the virus. That is only for real estate. That portion is only for the real estate rentals. So how much money do you anticipate to lose in real estate for the virus? If you're not a real estate renter, you don't have to answer that question. If you're on the website applying for the EIDL loan, you only have to answer the boxes in red. So if the box is not in red, unless you're a real estate person, a real estate renter, then you don't have to answer it. If you're a small business that uses 1099, I answered that. What if your LLC is set up with rental properties? Can you get a grant to help cover mortgages? You can get that emergency grant if you are an LLC for rental properties. Again, apply, and if you don't get it, you don't get it, but more than likely you will get it. I don't understand this question. This is billed in every day. How do we figure it? I don't understand that. If you want to resend it in a different manner that I can understand, I'm sorry. If we file married separate on our tax returns, what if we file married separate on our tax returns? I'm assuming that's for the individual stimulus. You will both get, if you're both under the 75,000, you will get the full, and then it falls to the single for the threshold, if that's the question you're answering. Can you clarify regarding non-essential businesses not getting loan disbursements until they begin working again? It was my understanding that this was to prevent layoffs and unemployment claims. Yes, it is, but do you want to pay your people for just sitting at home? I mean, I would hold off the loan until the people are actually working, and so you'll hopefully by the time the PPP loan comes around, it'll be time when people can get back to work and not be essential people and get back to work. If you are a 1099 sales consultant for a company, can you apply for the PPP loan? Probably not, because you have no payroll yourself. You're just receiving 1099 compensation, maybe filing a Schedule C, so proprietor, maybe you're incorporated. But if you have no payroll, then you can't apply for the PPP because it's a payroll-driven loan. Will the grant be considered taxable income? As of this moment, yes. And if you don't want to pay the tax on the grant, please let me know. I'll give you an invoice from accounting services. You can pay me, and I'll gladly pay the tax on it. What documentation are they going to ask to prove revenue, cost of goods sold, and payroll? Right now, nothing. At the I imagine at the end of the time period for the PPP, they'll be asking for some documentations. But right now, the applications are just put down the numbers. They're not asking for any documentation or proof. Again, from what I've heard in seminars that I've attended, which is from SBA people, is that they just want to get the money to people. They don't want to, and when I started applying in the beginning, I had to fill out a 4506T, which is a form that the SBA can get my tax return from the government. The SBA representative said in the interview, yeah, you fill those out, but we're not even going to bother sending them in because we don't have the time. We just want to get the money to the people. As the applications progress, and I put in applications at different time, the requirements for documentation became less and less until this Monday, where they were really minimal. Just fill out these online questionnaires, and you'll get your EIDL loan and your grant. So they really truly just want to get the money to the people. They don't want to be bogged down with paperwork or documentation. It's already just trying to get the money to people is a job, because there's so many people applying. So if my business is from home, can my home mortgage be paid? I would imagine with EIDL, yes. PPP, no. If you're incorporated and you pay yourself rent, then maybe yes, if it's a reasonable rent. Again, this is really new, so but if it's reasonable, I think you got an argument that you're paying yourself rent for the home office and some garage space, what have you. That may fly. Sole proprietors with no employees don't qualify for the PPP, right? Yes, there is no payroll for them to qualify for. Can a married couple both apply for EIDL if we have an S Corp and an LLC? Yes. I applied for the EIDL loan and grant for several of my companies. Will I be accepted? I don't know, but I know I won't be if I don't apply. So I applied for several of my companies. So this is a good question. For cost of goods sold, if you do not hold any inventory or goods and are in business as being a broker, would this be a problem to get approved for the EIDL loan? No, just so it's still the same formula: gross revenues minus cost of goods sold, which would be 0, divided by 2. So not to say the other questions weren't good questions, but that's a good one. Let's see what other questions we have. So can you elaborate on secular social service provider by faith-based entity? You don't have to answer that question, yes, unless you're a church. So there's a question there, and it's not in red. Once you get into the website and start filling out the EIDL loan that says secure social services provided, you don't have to answer that, what the expenses were for the year. So that's an NA. If I own multiple companies, can I get a grant or loan for each company? As far as I know, yes. So apply for each company, let them say no. 401k providers has explained that we can take distributions without penalty. Yes, that is the case. You can take 401k distributions out now before you're 59 and a half without penalty. You only have to pay the tax. Also, you can take out, you used to be able to take out 50% of the value of the 401k, or up to 50,000. Now you can take out 100,000 as a loan for your 401k if you don't want to pay the tax on it, and pay it back with interest to yourself. So that's another provision. Thank you for bringing that up. The form asks how much money we lost due to the virus. That's not a required question. That's only I believe, in a real estate example. So you can skip that one, unless you're a real estate renter. In terms of PPP, is there a dollar limit? It is a $2 million dollar limit, so it's pretty high. Is it okay to call the office if needed during the application? It's always okay to call the office, but a better tip is email a question. You're going to get a quicker response generally to an email than you will to a phone call, our phones are pretty much running off the hook with this. So if you email, you probably got a better chance of calling, but always, call if you want, but email's better to get a quicker response. Can we use cost of goods sold from 2018 return? Not advisable, but you can. They're just looking for numbers, and they want to plug numbers into that formula. Oh, good question. How many of our clients received 10K grant yet? None. Too soon to know. Another question, I had another one, is when would the loan start coming out? I don't know if anybody has any ideas, because the applications are coming in fast and furious, so I no idea. I know they said that you should receive the grant within 3 days of submission, but that's politicians putting it out, but it is to say that they want to get the grant out there first, and then as an immediate relief, and then work on the loan and give you the loan option later. So I'm guessing, my guess, and it's just my guess, 2 to 3 weeks for the grant. I'm not following this question, but I'll read it. Maybe the sender can send it some other way. I'm in real estate as an S Corp. Can you go over how I should apply for the grant? I mean, go through a website, but I don't think it's what you're asking. Is it going to be forgiven? Yes, whatever grant you have is going to be forgiven. How does it work for the weeks we have closing? How to apply for 600 extra weekly? I'm not sure what you mean by that, and I'm sorry about that. I opened an LLC on April 20th, 19. I've incurred expenses, but I have not earned income yet. Am I entitled to apply for the grant loan? Yeah, you're entitled to apply. You may not get it, but apply. Invest 10, 15 minutes. And if you get something, that's great. If you don't, you wasted 10 or 15 minutes. Can you elaborate on a loan application question for nonprofit regarding secular service provider faith-based entity? What means for a church? So they're asking what the expenses were for the year. So if you're a faith-based organization, you answer that question and put what your expenses were for the year, for the last 12 months. Have you shared a link for the application of PP loan grant? No, there is no link for the PP loan grant. The PP loan has to be done with an SBA bank or an SBA broker. So there is an application that you have to fill out that I can help you guys fill out, that you have to put the average monthly payroll in. You give that to a bank or broker and they will get you the loan. If you need referrals to a bank or broker, please email me and I'll give you referrals to a bank or broker. I like brokers myself because they treat you as a person, not the bank don't treat you as a person, but they call you, they email you back. I find them more responsive than banks. So I would recommend brokers, and I have several of them I can give. A real estate agent with S Corp, what do I use to justify application for the loan? You don't have to justify application for the loan. There is no justification. You just put in your numbers and then they either give you the loan or the grant or they don't. My LLC buys and sells houses, can't sell as no realtors working. Can I get to 10,000? So it's not the 10,000, it's up to 10,000. And like I started and I'll finish, apply, apply, apply. Just apply. You're gonna spend 10 or 15 minutes. You don't have to justify it. You just have to put numbers down and information down. And if you get it, you get it. This is a good question. If you open a business later on in 2019, past when the January to July payroll, what they will do is, and I should have mentioned this, I'm sorry, they will go off your January and February 2020 payroll. So if you didn't have payroll for the period February 15th to June 30th of 2019, they will go with your January and February payroll. I should have mentioned that, but thank you. So yes, just a repeat question, but that's okay. So if you file as a sole proprietor and don't have employees, you cannot apply for the PPP, but you can apply for the the EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and the grant. So if you have no employees, apply for the grant and EIDL loan. The 2019 cost of goods sold from accounting software is acceptable if tax return is not filed. Yes, absolutely. Software is permissible. Can an EIDL cover credit card debt? Yes, I believe so. I've read nothing that it cannot. Business credit card debt, not personal credit card debt. After I submit the app, I got a feeling I entered my bank account wrong. Is there a way to verify? Not that I'm aware of, so you're gonna have to go to the website and figure that one out. Sorry about that one. What if you have multiple businesses? Apply for all your multiple businesses. Thank you. You're welcome. My pleasure. Are there specific allowable uses for the grant? No, you just use it for business purposes. Here is your grant. Go stimulate the economy, help yourself. This is a good question. On a PPP, can a sole proprietor and other employees in an S Corp, not a Schedule C, use monthly earnings as average monthly payroll? No, that's not payroll. So a lot of S Corps take dividends out and no salary. You cannot use that for average monthly earnings. When it comes time to prove it, they're going to ask you for payroll returns. What if you are a veteran? There is nothing in there that I've read that has special provisions for veterans. It's a vet, so I'm assuming it's veteran, not vegetarian. Is a sole proprietor considered an employee for purposes of number of employees? I would put 1 for a sole proprietor. There's no W-2 for a sole proprietor. Once again, for the grant, for the emergency grant, there are no requirements for what it's used to be forgiven. So that's just $10,000 that they want to get to you. You can use it for whatever you like with its business purpose. Veterans, yes, of course. What is the best source to apply for PPP loan? If you already have a line of credit with your current bank, will they deny you? No, this is an SBA-backed product, so your bank will not deny you. It's the SBA that guarantees it. So I would recommend, going to your bank if you have a good relationship. If you don't have a good if you want a broker, go to a broker. But they won't deny you for credit. They won't deny you because you have a line of credit. Okay, so I think at this point we have, perhaps I missed this. Can an owner of business reported on a Schedule C, a sole proprietor, apply for EIDL loan? Yes, you can. And if you have employees under the sole proprietor, you can apply for the PPP. But you can certainly apply for the grant. If you are owner of a business and you are on payroll, can you apply for unemployment? Yes, absolutely. So if you're a non-essential employee and you're shut down, as of Friday, you can apply for unemployment. You should have had payroll though. You need payroll to apply for unemployment. If you're on payroll for your company, you can, or a sole proprietor, you can certainly apply for unemployment. That changed as of this Friday. What are goods sold to put if you're in a real estate business? 0. So if you're in a real estate business, cost of goods sold are 0. I'm a realtor and I applied for the EIDL. My husband is still working. Will they consider his income when approving me for the loan and grant? No, it's not income driven. What are the financial parameters? I'm not sure what the financial parameters are, but you put in your gross revenue and your cost of goods sold, and they will give you a loan for half the difference of that, and they'll give you a grant. But your husband's income does not come into play at all of this. How do you, again, how do you determine cost of goods sold in your real estate business? There is none. If you're in a service business, real estate business, there is no cost of goods sold. Even if you're beyond the threshold limit for the individual stimulant, $500 each for each dependent, you will not get that. So that the threshold goes for $1,200 and the $500 for the children. So should a doctor who provides services, cost of goods sold will be zero as well? Yes, service businesses with cost of goods sold will be zero. You're welcome. If you have an LLC, it pays management fees into your personal S Corp. Would those management fees be considered gross revenue? Yes, absolutely. The gross revenues into the S Corp, and so they would be gross revenues for purposes of this loan. Good question that I don't know. How long will it take to get the grants and the loans? Again, I mentioned my personal feeling, it's just my personal feeling, 2 to 3 weeks for the grant and probably a month or 2 for the loan. What is the amount that will be forgiven? The grant, the emergency grant, the full amount of the grant, the top amount of the grant is $10,000. So if you're lucky enough to get the $10,000, full $10,000 will be forgiven. Anything, whatever you get for the grant will be forgiven. And then the PPP loan, anything you spend in an 8-week period on payroll, rent, and utilities will be forgiven. You're welcome. Any other loan program other than these 2 available? Not that I'm aware of. There are SBA loans. There are regular SBA loans, and if you apply for a regular SBA loan, like our last slide or one of our last slides, you won't have to make a payment for 6 months. So there are regular SBA loans that you can apply for. And I think of it as 3 loans, really. I think of the grant as a loan, but it's really just a grant, the EIDL loan, and also the PPP loan. If you think this is worthwhile for me, please email me the names of SBA lenders you recommend. We'll do that. Health insurance as well. So health insurance is covered under the PPP, but you have to have payroll. You can't just be paying health insurance and apply for the PPP. You need payroll, and the health insurance is part that counts for your average monthly payroll. Is there a way to get the Q&A script after the webinar is over? I don't think so. But if there is, email me and we'll get it to you. This webinar is through our website, and it's also on Facebook, although I don't know how to get onto Facebook, but they tell me it's there. So let me know if you can't find it, and we'll probably put it on LinkedIn as well. All right, so I think the questions have slowed down. And I want to thank you for sharing this part of the evening with me. If I haven't answered all your questions or you have questions later on, please call or email. Sometimes email works best at this time. We're very busy with this stimulus package, just helping clients. Many questions. And again, hard to get us on the phone these days. So if you can't get us on the phone, shoot us a quick email. We'll email you back. All right, thank you, Errol. Have a good night. Once again, with the families, be safe, be healthy, and apply.